Welcome to episode 11 of 86,400 stories. We have officially hit the double digits, and reaching this milestone feels like a new beginning for this community. I want to bring you a story today that feels like home. This is an Australian masterpiece. As you see, I have read the book Catch of the Decade twice now because it perfectly captures what we are trying to build here. A community that believes possibility has no postcode. Today we are documenting two brothers who did not just build a website. They built a new way to live. Their story proves that the only gap between where you are and where you want to be is the courage to ignore the experts. Imagine it is July 2008. The world is teetering on the brink of a massive financial collapse. In a small high-energy office in Melbourne, two brothers are staring at a computer screen. They are watching numbers roll in that simply should not be possible. They have just agreed to move 8,000 Toshiba laptops in 24 hours. Problem? They do not have the $4 million in cash lying around to pay for that stock. Most people would call this a reckless gamble. Gabby and Hezi Leibovich called it the sale of the century. This is the story of how an Israeli family arrived in Melbourne with nothing and ended up owning the market. The Leibovich journey did not start in a glass boardroom with venture capital backing. It started in the dust, the noise, and the raw energy of the Melbourne markets. When the family arrived in Australia in late 1986, they were outsiders in every sense of the word. Gabby was a teenager in year 11 trying to fit into a new world. Hezi was just a young boy in grade 4. They did not just learn English from textbooks. They learned it from a television screen. Every night at 7 p.m., the entire Israeli family of 5 would sit in front of a thick wood panel TV, watching Sale of the Century with Tony Barber. It was their classroom for language and their first lesson in the thrill of the deal. They realized early on that in this country, your word was your currency and your hustle was your only safety net. $1 billion exits before the headlines. They were in the trenches of retail. They learned early on that pricing is not a mathematical formula. It is an intuition. There is a specific story in the book that changed how I look at business. They once found a miracle deal from a supplier. 1,000 units of a product for only $20 each. Everywhere else in Australia, these were selling for $100. The wholesale price was usually $80. Their manager at the time, a guy named Anis, wanted to list them on the website for $29. Why? Because that was the habit of the industry. Buy low, add a small margin, sell low. It was the safe play. But Gabby stopped him. He looked at the market demand and challenged the team to price them at $69.99. Anis started sweating. He thought Gabby was mad. He said, "That is almost triple the price we sold them for last time." But Gabby told him something profound. He said, "You have based your original price not on market demand, but rather on a habit. You must treat every opportunity on its own unique factors." They listed them at $69.99. They sold out all 1,000 units in the same amount of time, 2 hours, and they quadrupled their profit. That was their first competitive moat, ignoring the habit of the industry to capture the real value of an opportunity. By 2008, they were running Catch of the Day, a site built on the radical idea of one crazy deal every 24 hours. Then came the Toshiba deal. 8,000 laptops, selling for $599 each. They wanted the deal desperately, but they did not have the $4 million cash to pay up front. So they used the ultimate startup leverage, the speed of the sales cycle. They told Toshiba they would run the deal on a Wednesday and report the sales quantity on Thursday. Toshiba agreed because, quite frankly, they had nothing to lose. At midday, the deal went live. The team gathered around the screens. By 4 p.m., just 4 hours later, they had sold 4,000 laptops. That is 1,000 laptops every single hour. The office was buzzing with an energy that felt electric. They were moving stock faster than major department stores. But then the phone rang. A traditional PC retailer had seen the deal. They were terrified. They called Toshiba and forced them to stop the sale immediately. Catch had to stop at 4 p.m. and leave the remaining 4,000 laptops unsold. But the damage to the status quo was done. Their reputation was made. They had proven that a small, fast-moving team could move more stock in 4 hours than a giant retailer could move in a month. They had entered the big leagues. After Toshiba, the floodgates opened. The world of retail realized that these brothers were playing a different game. They shifted 2,000 Asus laptops in a single hour. They moved 10,000 pillow sets in 5 hours. They sold 8,000 pearl necklaces the very next day. Their office whiteboard became a map of creative chaos. They ran events like centathons for perfumes, mamathons for mothers, and the legendary Freeday. Now pay attention to this tactic. On Freeday, everything on the site was free. The customer only paid for shipping. Most people think free means losing money, but on their first free day, they made a clear profit of $200,000 in a single day. How? By understanding the margins of logistics and volume. They were not just selling products. They were creating a retail addiction. They eventually shut down their eBay operations. They shut down their As Seen on TV channel. They focused exclusively on the brand that was running faster than anyone imagined. But even a $1 billion trajectory has its crisis moments. In December 2008, during the busiest retail week of the year, disaster struck. A torrential downpour hit their new warehouse in Springvale. The entire office was knee-deep in water. Imagine the scene. Boxes of electronic stock, years of hard work floating in water. But the team did not go home. Every single employee stayed all night. They waded through the water to move stock to higher ground. It took 20 hours just to extract the water. They missed the Boxing Day sales season, the biggest month in Australian retail. It was a turning point. They realized that physical retail had risks they could not control. It took them 10 years to try a physical store again, but they did not break. They stayed at the edge, innovating because they had to. Bounce back harder than ever. In January 2009, just a month after the flood, they reached a new peak. Between the hours of 12 noon and 1 p.m., they sold $1,500,000 worth of Samsung TVs. Yes, you heard that right. $1.5 million in one single hour. A small team gathered around a single computer staring at the screen in disbelief as the numbers rolled in. They felt like they were in a parallel world, but it was real. They were here to stay. Gabby and Hezi Leibovich eventually navigated 3 major exits, including brands like Menulog and Catch, building a $1 billion empire from nothing. From an Israeli family learning English through game shows in 1986 to redefining how an entire continent shops. Their journey proves that dreaming big is the only requirement for success. I want you to look at the first pages of this book. It says simply, dream big and believe anything is possible. That is not just a slogan, that is the strategy. So what do we learn from the Leibovich brothers? That habit is the silent killer of growth. If you do things the way they have always been done, you will only ever get the result everyone else gets. They prove that being the new kid on the block allows you to run faster and take risks that the giants are too scared to touch. Your disadvantages, being an immigrant, being an outsider, having no cash, these are actually your greatest moats. If this story meant something to you, if it gave you even a small piece of what you needed today, subscribe to 86,400 Stories. We are building this community because we believe in one thing. Possibility has no postcode. Tell me in the comments. Would you have the courage to say yes to an 8,000 unit deal without having the $4 million in your hand. I read every single one. And remember, the pen is in your hand. Anything is possible.